Buddy, let's get rolling today. We've got a ton to do today, plenty of stuff. Made the decision this morning. You guys are doing really well. Let's share the screen here. You're doing really well getting your assignments in. Very, very pleased. Let's go ahead and kind of take a look at the scorecard here. Now, of course, we have some people still need to start, maybe 5 or 6, but basically 58 have finished the first study guide, the second study guide over 50, which is great, and 46 have done the third one. Okay, so that's really good. So just keep it up. Again, I grade on Wednesday afternoons, Sunday afternoons. So if you turn it in between that, it won't be graded till the next time. A lot of people turn it in like an hour after I finish posting the grades on a Wednesday night or Sunday night. That one's going to wait till the next Wednesday. So don't panic, especially if it's after, say, 5 o'clock on Wednesday that you turn yours in, or after 5 o'clock on, actually 3 o'clock on Sunday. If you turn it in, it'll get picked up on the next round. All right, so saying that, let's jump back into the regularly scheduled lecture here. And it's day 13 of the Biden administration, just day 13. Now, you guys, of course, are preparing for your research paper, which I'm not going to accept until we get at least 60 days in. At 60 days, you can start making some judgments and start writing some pretty good research-based stuff. And I'm actually, going to go against my own comment from last week that I was going to help you with the other 3, but I am because it's so in the news. So today we're going to help you with climate, right? So if you're do what I asked you to do, go and copy those questions in and have a Google Doc where you're listing all the things that have been done on climate. We'll do that later in the hour. So that should help you even more do your research for you. It was a choice between talking about what's happening or just letting it slide. You can't let it slide. It's important that we all know what's going on. So expect some little more help on all 4 of them. Okay, so just come to class, pay attention to the lectures. You're going to get a lot of help getting your research done. The next thing we're going to do too, though, is prepare you for your state test. And in the next few weeks, we're going to have a lot more state EX questions, right? EX exam, state exam questions. And so to help you prepare for that, I posted on the website, and let's go ahead and find that and do this. I would do this I think it's more fun on your phone, to be honest. So if you want to use your phone for this, go ahead and use your phone, or you can use your Chromebook or computer, whatever. And if you go to the website, here it is. Here's today's lecture, right? I'll post that sometime within the hour for the students at home. But right below that, there's 2 things you have to do. One, you have to kind of review Article 2, which is the second article in the Constitution, and there'll be a question or 2 from that. And then there's going to be these flashcards from Study Stack. Now, a lot of the things I'm going to lecture on today are reviewed and reinforced there. So I think this is such a easy and helpful little memorization tool that we've been using it for a long time. This is actually picked by students. Students found it and said, this was really helpful, let's use it. So we've been using it ever since. So what you do is just go ahead and go to the website, click on the flashcards from Study Stack, and it looks like this. And when you come in, it basically starts asking you questions. How many articles are there in the Constitution? If you don't know it, you can flip it over. There's 7, okay? If you know it, click no. How many amendments? Not sure. Oh, 27, I didn't know that one. Mark them here, and it'll give them to you again. Any of them that you miss, it'll give them to you again at the end. So you have a double chance to go through. These are really helpful, okay? So what we're gonna do is right now, give you 10 minutes to start on this. And I expect, of course, you'll go through it again at home, but I wanna make sure everybody knows where it is and has had some experience with it so that you know that questions, okay, are gonna come from here that you need to know. And a lot of it, again, reviews what we've covered in class. All right, so let's go ahead and start our 10 minutes. Just go ahead and open this, and we expect everybody to do it for 10 minutes at least. And ready, set, go. Meanwhile, I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and pause the recording for those at home. Go ahead and work through that right now at home. All right, we're going to resume the recording and get going. Let's go ahead and put your computers away, phones away now, and you can do that at home. It's fun, it's entertaining. You can do it on the bus, riding into work or to school. So it's a great review, really does do a great job of reviewing things we've already covered, but also some new things too. So yeah, so there we are. All right, let's go ahead now and share the screen again and get back to our regularly scheduled lecture. And I'm going to teach you a new vocabulary word here. It's called mandate. Mandate is the right given by the people of the United States for a president and his administration, that's all the people he hires in his administration, to rule, to govern the country. We give him a 4-year mandate. This mandate was a big one, 7 million people more than the opponent, 51% plus of the vote. That's big, huge win in the Electoral College. That's a mandate. Gives him the authority, the permission, and basically it's the American people saying, now go do something with it. We're giving you this opportunity, Mr. Biden, go do something with it. And you guys know as well as I do that the first 100 days really matter, because if you get off to a solid start, you're going to be successful. If you don't get off to a good start, it's going to stumble and stumble. And, you know, if you get off to a good start, then you set the track record, set everything in motion. It runs like a well-oiled machine. And that's really what you're after, is having a government that's efficient, that's running like a well-oiled machine and getting things done. Now, there's 2 tools that a president can use to get the job done. One is legislation. Legislation are the laws passed by Congress. Everything a president does has got to be based in legislation. We believe in the rule of law. You can't do anything outside of the legislation. If Congress hasn't given you authority, then you can't do it. Now, within an existing law, you can issue presidential orders to execute the law, to faithfully execute the law, to get things moving. Like if, okay, Congress wants A, then how do we get there? Well, let's do this, this, and this. But the key to all of it is legislation, right? And you guys have all seen the little video about Bill and Bill becomes a law and stuff. We might actually play that in class just for fun. But nevertheless, it's very difficult to get a law through Congress. The Constitution is set up to make it hard, that laws aren't considered lightly, that they have to go through lots of hurdles to get passed. So it starts out as a bill, turns into a resolution from both the House and the Senate, works its way through both sides, lots of discussion, lots of debates, and so it's hard. For example, the Obamacare law took 14 months of debate to get through, but finally did. And now Mr. Biden is using that same law to enhance protections for people in healthcare who maybe have lost their jobs or lost their healthcare as a result of the pandemic. Now, here's the thing. Legislation does not happen without votes. Mr. Biden can't get a law passed on his own at all. In fact, all he can do is suggest, here's what I want, to Congress. It's up to Congress to make the law. That's the separation of powers bit. But they can propose ideas to the Congress, literally give their ideas to one of the senators and say, can you propose this into the Senate or into the House for us? Now, Mr. Biden's team is very smart. They know what they're doing, and they've crafted a $1.9 trillion recovery package to rescue the economy and to pay for all these vaccinations to get schools open. So all of that is in a package that has to be passed by the House and Senate in a law that will give $1.9 trillion and lots of specifics for the Biden administration then to implement. Does that make sense? So Congress has to give the authority first. Okay, well, this law right here has just started to be moved in the House and Senate. Now, in the Senate side, for example, there are 50 Democrats, so the law can pass, but maybe not. Because in the Senate, they like to pass things if they can on a 60 vote, 40 vote margin. More, a supermajority, not just 50, but 60. Now there's ways around it. It's called reconciliation. We'll talk more about that later, as it probably will happen. But if you go through reconciliation to reconcile a budget, you can pass things on a 50 vote margin, which is maybe what's going to happen here. But the nice part is, in terms of bipartisanship, is 10 Republicans, including Mitt Romney from Utah, are meeting with Biden today to present a counter proposal, a $60 million package. Now that's a big gap between 1.9 trillion and 60 million, but they've got some ideas and they're meeting with Biden right now and they're sharing ideas. And the whole idea of this process, this rather complicated process I just showed you here, is to create some sort of compromise. So they're going to see if they can't get to 60 votes in the Senate. with 10 Republicans meeting with Biden, who will then go back to the Democrats and keep negotiating. Any law to become law has got to go through the legislative hurdles of passing both the Senate and the House. So sometimes the bills are introduced in both houses at the same time, which speeds things up a bit. But basically, it has to go through all of these committees and everything else and finally be voted on the floor and passed. The Senate will have its own version that will get to the floor and pass, and they'll be different. Even if there's one word different between the Senate version and the House version of the same law, they have to go to what we call a conference committee, where members of the House and the Senate get together, iron out the differences, and then they send it back to their respective bodies, the House and the Senate, for a vote. And if it passes again, then it goes to the president for signature. Now, the president, of course, can veto it. That is problematic, because what happens there, and I need to escape out here, hang on, I just messed that up, is that the Biden administration wants to get these laws through. But the thing is, if they veto it, it takes a 2/3 vote of both houses to override the presidential veto. Then the president has to do it anyway. But in this case, we're not worrying about vetoes at all. We're just worrying about the initial package. Okay, so that's just a small little detail. Now, in the middle of all this, we have, of course, the biggest pandemic in 100 years. We have the economy in the worst state it's been in 70. And we've got all sorts of other problems, climate change and so on, that you're writing your research paper about. As far as COVID's concerned, the United States, we brought the curve down. 100 days of mask wearing has helped. Vaccinations have helped a little. We're still nowhere near the rest of the world. Do you realize in Australia right now, it's all back to normal? They haven't had a case. I heard a report Sunday. They haven't had a case in 2 weeks. They're back to their sports events being packed shoulder to shoulder. Their restaurants are open. Their schools are open. Everything's normal there, because they did what they had to do to stop the spread and to get to near zero infection rate. We're nowhere near that. We're close to 13, 14% infection rate. England's had a tough time. Here's England. See this? They had to shut down their entire country again to get that down, because they got a new strain that is more contagious. And so they are in as bad a place as they were way back originally when this hit England so hard. So they've got to do some pretty severe things to get it under control, and other countries are responding. The United States has done horribly. 4.5% of the world's population, nearly 20% of the people that have died, because we didn't do what Australia did. We didn't do what Singapore did. We didn't do what Korea did. We didn't do what China did. In Wuhan, China, where this was first discovered, it's all back to normal. It can be done. Or we can painfully continue to struggle. Utah, now the reason I'm bringing this up is because 1/4 of your paper is about the 100 days and the pandemic. How is Biden doing? Is the country listening? Are they wearing masks? Are we socially distancing? Are we doing what we need to do? Now let's take a look at Utah. Okay, so really, look, all this needs to, be looked at from our perspective. How's it affecting us here? We have a 13% positivity rate. Some states, most states, won't even open their schools until it gets below 3%. We're a half open, right? But 3% in some states. Las Vegas, their schools are still closed. Chicago, they're still closed. They're closing again in New York because they got above 3%. We got to do better here. Now, here's the other thing too, and we will, but we lost 1,500 Utahns already. That's a lot. Confirmed cases, about 10% of the population has had it. That's all. So we still have 90% that could still catch it. Now, good news, vaccines, 172,000 shots so far, but that's just the first dose. Second dose is only at 15,000. So that gives us a 0.5 fully vaccinated rate. There's some talk right now, though, because the new strains coming in from South Africa and Brazil and England, variants, that maybe we should just give everybody one dose to start with to protect ourselves, at least the whole population, a little bit better. That's a big debate right now. So we'll see how that goes. So we'll be tracking this for the 100 days for your paper, because basically you want data as to how well it's gone. And I've just given you a couple of data points. In other words, you can't just say, well, I think it's gone great, or I think it's gone bad. You got to do data. And this chart right here shows that there's been some improvement. This right here shows there's been some progress. Not enough though. At this rate, guess what? It would probably take us 5 years to vaccinate everybody. That's too slow. So we're hoping the Biden administration is ultimately successful. Another important part that Biden has got to work on right now, he's got to walk and chew gum at the same time, so to speak. He's got to get his cabinet approved by the Senate. See, Biden can't just pick anybody he wants for any job he wants. There's certain jobs, the most important ones, that have to be approved by the legislature, by the Senate specifically. This is called the confirmation authority. So if you look here at our chart, you got Biden, right, doing what he can right now, but he needs a team. And the team is called the cabinet. And we don't have a picture of his new cabinet because he doesn't have one yet. So what we got to do is get his nominees to the Senate, to Chuck Schumer, and to get them approved here in the Senate, which isn't often easy because even just one senator can object to somebody and delay and cause a hearing and a vote on each one. So it can really slow down the process if they want to. One senator can slow down. There's always one that wants to do that. So getting these people through is hard. Now, look, the Biden administration needs votes for confirmation. The most powerful branch of the government is the legislative branch if you have the votes. If you don't have the votes, nothing happens. It's called gridlock. 50 Democrats can be enough, but again, with objections, it'll take longer. Here's how it works. They're called checks and balances. Now, we'll see this chart again and again, so don't panic about it right now. I'm just going to show one little part. The president needs a cabinet. He has got to make nominations to federal offices right here to the Senate. The Senate then has to approve those back to him. This is so the Congress can look at the people coming in and seeing if they're worthy of holding the job. All right, so this is called the confirmation power. It's not the legislative, it's not the lawmaking power, which we call the legislative power. That's important too. But this is the confirmation power, and it's Senate only. Senate only. Senate must approve presidential appointments. They also can ratify treaties with a 2/3 vote, but we'll save that for another day. Any judges like Brett Kavanaugh here has got to be approved by the Senate as well. So if you're going to go on the Supreme Court, Senate has to approve you. Now, who are the two people in Utah that get a chance to approve these people? Well, it's Mitt Romney and Mike Lee. You need to know both of their names. Senator Lee is the senior senator, former professor out of BYU, really knowledgeable constitutional law kind of thing. And he's been senator now for, let's see, about 8 years, maybe longer. He's the senior senator. Why? Because he got elected first. Romney's older, but he's the junior senator because he got elected later. He's only been in there 2 years. Romney, however, when it comes to the Senate, is probably right now the most, how should I say it, interesting senator in the country, because as a Republican, he's the one crossing the aisle, trying to be bipartisan. He's with the president today, trying to, negotiate some compromises. Mitt Romney has arisen as one of the key guys in the Senate in terms of getting things done. So keep your eyes on these two senators and how they vote. Now, these are the people that they need to vote and approve. So we're looking at the top line here. These are cabinet positions. Okay, so these are the cabinet positions. Then there's cabinet rank positions. In other words, they have about equal authority and responsibilities, but they're not technically in the cabinet. For example, the Director of National Intelligence and the White House Chiefs of Staff, the Budget Director, and so on, UN Ambassador. But the ones we're going to concern ourselves with is this cabinet level. Now, right now, the Secretary of State proposal is Anthony Blinken. Looks really talented, really competent. Secretary of Treasury is Janet Yellen. She's already been approved. She was former head of the National Bank. Everybody thinks she's brilliant, and she gets there. Defense Secretary is Lloyd Austin. He was a former high-ranking general in the military and retired and now has that position. So these two have been approved by the Senate. The next one is Attorney General Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is going through the approval process now, as all of these are, including Pete Buttigieg in transportation, health and human services, labor. I'm only going to concern you with these four. Okay? You don't need to know the names of all the rest, although they're all important and have important roles to play. Some are really, really proven talents, like Jennifer Granholm and Pete Buttigieg, for example. But the reason I want you to know these top ones is because they're in the direct line of succession to the presidency. Okay, back when we passed our 20th and then later 25th Amendment, we determined that we needed to have a really clear order. If something happens to the president, then who takes over? So the president, right, as long as he's healthy and is able to do the job, stays as president, no worries. However, if something does happen, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 across this line. Now, there's other cabinet members that are also in line. If there's, for example, a State of the Union address where all these people are congregated in the same room, given what happened on the 6th of January, they need to be more safe. There'll be one of these, who knows which one, that will be appointed as the designated survivor. Say, for example, Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation. He literally doesn't attend. I remember Dick Cheney, vice president, one year. He was the designated survivor, and he went off fishing in Montana. Nobody knew where he was. So if the worst happened and the whole government was lost, there's a designated survivor sitting out there somewhere who'll be president. By the way, this line of succession goes deeper and deeper than this. It goes to every ambassador in the order they were created. And so it goes, it's 100 deep. So if the worst case happens, there's always going to be somebody who can assume the presidency, always. Even if there happen to be, for example, ambassador to China right now. All right, but these are the ones I need you to know right off the bat. Now, Joe Biden, president, Kamala Harris, vice president, then Nancy Pelosi, the most powerful member of the House of Representatives, Speaker of the House. Then it's Patrick Leahy, the Senate president pro tempore. What does that mean? It's a position given to usually the longest serving senator, and Patrick Leahy's it. And with Patrick Leahy, he runs the Senate when Kamala Harris isn't there. He manages the meetings and makes sure everything runs smoothly. So it's an important position, but it's really an honor that the Senate bestows on usually its oldest ranking member. Then we get real serious here with cabinet members. Now, these cabinet members, it's important the order that those offices were created by Congress. Now, listen to this. The president didn't create these offices. George Washington had a Secretary of State, Treasury, Defense, and Attorney General. These four were created by Washington. Well, actually, not really. He suggested them to the Congress, and Congress created the positions. Congress funds the positions. They have to be approved by the Senate. They basically fund their agency on an annual basis. So these people have to report to Congress quite frequently. Well, whenever Congress says they need to come and talk to us. So it's really important, the relationship between Congress and these people. But I'm giving you these four because it's 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th in line to the presidency. But these are also the offices created by George Washington 232 years ago. That's a long time ago. But they lasted. That's how smart Washington was. Washington is still my favorite president. He did so much that still lasts, that still works all those hundreds of years later. Secretary of State, and you need to know the current one by name, and you need to know who Washington appointed to be the first. The first Secretary of State was Thomas Jefferson. You may have heard of him. The first Secretary of Treasury was Alexander Hamilton. I'm sure you've heard of him. The first Secretary of Defense was Henry Knox, a famous general during the American Revolution. Fort Knox is named after him, for example, where all the gold is stored. And then Merrick Garland is the Attorney General. This is the person who's over all of our legal affairs in the country. And the first person there was William Randolph, a fellow Virginian lawyer, former governor of Virginia, friend of George Washington. So some of those names are household names for you right now, but you need to know them. Who was Washington's original and who is the person that holds the position today. All right, now, you also need to know, according to the state test, who your congressmen are in the House of Representatives. You know the two senators. Both of those senators represent all of us. Lee represents all of us. Romney represents all of us. In the Senate, what about the House? In the House, you only get one representative, period, one. And this is where Utah County is a little odd because Utah County has been what we call gerrymandered. In other words, they split the vote up in order to, I don't know, we'll talk more about gerrymandering later, but Utah is a very gerrymandered state. Okay, well, the point is there's a lot of Republicans live in Utah County. So they split the county and gave half of it to Salt Lake, which is where most of the Democrats live, a higher percentage, and so on. And that's kind of how they get this fourth district. And it's always a tight district. Burgess Owens barely won this. And I need to tell you, it's about like 1,000 votes is all. But he's new, he's brand new. And if you live in this purple section, which is basically Lehigh over, that part of the county from the other side of the lake, so to speak, basically, then this is your guy, Burgess Owens. The rest of the county is represented by Curtis. Curtis is my representative, for example. He was former mayor of Provo, did a great job. I think he's doing a great job. I like this guy a lot. I don't know much about Burgess Owens yet at all, but we'll see. I'm sure he's going to be great. But we've got then a new one too, Moore, who's represent District 1, which is green, Stewart, which is blue, and 3 and 4. They're numbered. So it's Utah 4 is Burgess Owens. Utah 3 is Curtis. And you need to know both of their names. The two that represent Utah County, but only half of the county, are Utah 3, Curtis, and Utah 4, Owens. All right, everybody got that? All right, cool. Now, one more little caveat here. It's the number of members of the House combined with your number of senators that tell you how many electoral votes you get when you vote for president. So Utah gets 4 from the House, 2 from the Senate, and that equals 6. So when Utah voted in the last election, the 6 electoral votes won by the Republican Party. By the way, all of these members are Republicans, every one of them. Okay, those votes went to the Republican candidate. Okay, that's how you determine the electoral votes. Okay, that's kind of important. All right, well, now let's, after, that's kind of a good introduction, if you will, to your constitutional questions that you're going to get on this next study guide, which I'll release a Wednesday morning after, we get the next lecture in. Okay, but I want everybody working on those first 3 right now, get caught up. This week, well, yesterday, was one of the biggest days in the history of this country in terms of climate change. Here's John Kerry and Kamala Harris. John Kerry is a special envoy that Mr. Biden has picked to be our national kind of climate change guy. Former Secretary of State, former long-term senator, good friends with Joe Biden, been around a long time. All right, now, the thing is, the announcements that were made yesterday and some sprinkled out since day one are game changing in terms of climate in this country. So that's why I decided, I just better go ahead and report this because, yeah, you guys need this information. So I would key on these slides, maybe come to this portion of it and start jotting this stuff down for your research paper. But basically, here's the thing. He announced yesterday, talking about Biden, pausing all leases on federal lands and waters for fossil fuel exploration and extraction from here on in. If it's a current well or something, it's going to be allowed to continue, but no new stuff. So down at Bears Ears, brand new national monument, big area, no more fracking down there. That's where you extract natural gas. No more coal mines, no more oil production on federal land. That just stops right now. Then he's going to speed up the process to get renewables permits. I don't know if you've been out in the desert lately in Utah near Delta and all that, but that whole desert area, the farmers out there are putting up windmills right and left. And there's huge solar farms that have gone in. This started with the Obama administration about 12 years ago, when they put some money in the economic stimulus to stimulate renewable energies, and people could start building this stuff. And even though at the time it was real expensive, now the prices have come down and it's everywhere. If you're down to Vegas and you're driving from Vegas to, say, Disneyland next time you go down, look at the solar farms just outside of Vegas. Look at those towers. None of that existed 12 years ago. And it's caused the price of electric production of electricity to drop dramatically. Also, big change. The government of the United States buys a lot of cars. The Forest Service, the military, the members of Congress, every agency has thousands and thousands of cars. It's the largest purchaser of cars. They're going to start buying electric cars. So that means manufacturers have to build them and a caveat to that. General Motors, our largest manufacturer of cars here in the United States, has announced that it will not make any more SUVs or trucks with gas engines starting 2035, that they're already making this shift over to electric. And then one I didn't put on the list, but should be, and that is that Biden has also said all along the freeways, we're going to put electric charging stations so people can charge their electric cars wherever they happen to be, so you don't run out of juice as you travel across the country. He also is strengthening the Justice Department under Merrick Garland, the Energy Department, another cabinet member position, Environmental Protection Agency, to focus on environmental justice. In other words, if there's somebody out there polluting and violating the law, they're going to go after them. So we're cutting down on the use of coal, oil, and we'll stay with natural gas because it's a little cleaner for a while, but we're going to get off of that too. Basically, climate change will become a national security priority for the Pentagon. I don't know how many bases right now that are going to be affected by the rising oceans and that kind of stuff. But also all over the world, there are places that are falling apart as the droughts hit and people are losing their farms and their livelihoods and are crowding into cities. It's created some problems in lots of parts of the world that could create hotspots for us in terms of our military needs. Rejoined the climate change, Paris, that I told you about that one. He canceled a pipeline that was to pull oil, which was very, very pollutive. It's from tar sands up in Canada, up in Alberta. There was to be a pipeline come through the United States to take it to Texas to be refined so it could be sold to the world market. That's being cut off. Canada, if you want to produce that really high pollutive oil, then you need to take it somewhere else, right? We're not going to take that here. So those are major changes. Also, too, remember John Kerry was appointed, to this important rejoining climate change. Everything's to be guided by science. They're also going to attack greenhouse gases and take methane more seriously. Methane is leaking out of wells and things all over the place. Now, most methane is produced by animals, by the way, but still, it's the permafrost in the Arctic is the problem. It's starting to heat up, and when it does, it releases more methane into the air, and that is another disaster waiting to happen. So we have to cut down on methane. Here you can see some methane at in an infrared kind of thing coming out of an oil facility in Texas. Here's a map showing all of these different wells and things in Texas. That are polluting essentially. Now, he's also telling investors, don't put your money into coal, oil, or gas anymore because it's not going to be as good of an investment as going into renewables and electric. And like I said, General Motors already said, yeah, we're going to go along with that because it is the future. We can't burn coal, oil, natural gas forever. We need to get to an all renewable electric grid as fast as possible, which would create an immense number of jobs, by the way. And also, if you're in school and going into engineering, this is the field you want to enter because there's going to be so much new technology, new science that needs to be done to pull this off. So we're going to leave a century-old technology behind. And I'll tell you, it's already happened. For example, in Utah, there's was coal trains that used to come down from Emory County right through our town, right out to a plant here in Delta area where they produced electricity for California using Utah coal. 2, 3, 4 coal trains a day, 100 cars per train. All but disappeared. Why? Because California won't buy coal-produced electricity anymore. So they've shifted everything over to natural gas. And then you get all these renewable things going out there, solar panels and whatever else. And that's how we're going to make money. The Navajo Reservation, for example, they used to produce coal power, for California. Now they're going all electric. They've shut down all of their coal plants and they're going all, with solar panels and things like that. So we're in for one of the biggest technological changes in American history. Well, saying that, let's listen to the president's initial speech launching this whole campaign. So here we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know the press has just had a long session with the team here about what we're talking about today and this afternoon. And let me just start by saying I can't tell you how much I appreciate the 3 people standing next to me here for what they've agreed to do to help, particularly my best buddy, John Kerry. Asking a former Secretary of State to come back and do this has been as I know, there's a big ask on the part of myself. I was going to blame Kamala for it as well, but for both of us. And But John's been deeply involved, the secretary's been deeply involved in climate issues as a senator and one of the leaders legislatively as well. And I don't think anybody knows more about the issue and the damage that's been done by some of the executive orders of the previous administration. And Gina, you've run everything, Gina. Thank you very much. Let me get to it. Today is Climate Day at the White House, and which means that today is Jobs Day at the White House. We're talking about American innovation, American products, American labor. We're talking about the health of our families and cleaner water, cleaner air, and cleaner communities. We're talking about national security, America leading the world in a clean energy future. It's a future of enormous hope and opportunity. It's about coming to the moment to deal with this maximum threat that we exist with that's now facing us upon climate change with a greater sense of urgency. In my view, we've already waited too long to deal with this climate crisis. We can't wait any longer. We see it with our own eyes, we feel it, we know it in our bones, and it's time to act. And I might note parenthetically, if you notice the attitude of the American people toward greater impetus on focusing on climate change and doing something about it has increased across the board, Democrat, Republican, Independent. That's why I'm signing today an executive order to supercharge our administration's ambitious plan to confront the existential threat of climate change. It is an existential threat. Last year, wildfires burned more than 5,000 acres in the West, as no one knows better than the vice president, former senator from California, an area roughly the size of the entire state of New Jersey. More intense and powerful hurricanes and tropical storms pummel states across the Gulf Coast and along the East Coast. I can testify to that from Delaware. Historic floods, severe droughts have ravaged the Midwest. More Americans see and feel the devastation in big cities, small towns, coastlines, and in farmlands, in red states and in blue states. And the Defense Department reported that climate change is a direct threat to more than 2/3 of the military's operational critical installations, 2/3. And so this could well be on the conservative side. And many climate and health calamities are colliding all at once. It's not just the pandemic that keeps people inside, it's poor air quality. Multiple studies have shown that air pollution is associated with an increased risk of death from COVID-19. And just like we need a unified national response to COVID-19, we desperately need a unified national response to the climate crisis, because there is a climate crisis. We must lead global response, because neither challenge can be met, as Secretary Kerry has pointed out many times, by the United States alone. We know what to do. We've just got to do it. When we think of climate change, we think of it, this is a case where conscience and convenience cross paths, where dealing with this existential threat to the planet and increasing our economic growth and prosperity are one and the same. When I think of climate change, I think of, and the answers to it, I think of jobs. A key plank of our Build Back Better recovery plan is building a modern, resilient climate infrastructure and clean energy future that will create millions of good paying union jobs, not $7, $8, $10, $12 an hour, but prevailing wage and benefits. You know, we can put millions of Americans to work modernizing our water systems, transportation, our energy infrastructure to withstand the impacts of extreme climate. We've already reached a point where we're gonna have to live with what it is now. That's gonna require a lot of work all by itself without it getting any worse. When we think of renewable energy, we see American manufacturing, American workers racing to lead the global market. We see farmers making American agriculture first in the world to achieve net zero emissions and gaining new sources of income in the process. And I want to parenthetically thank the Secretary of Agriculture for helping to put together that program during the campaign. We see small business and master electricians designing, installing, and innovating energy conserving technologies in building homes and buildings. And we're going to reduce electric consumption and save hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in energy costs in the process. And when the previous administration reversed the Obama-Biden vehicle standard and picked big oil companies over American workers, the Biden-Harris administration will not only bring those standards back, will set new ambitious ones that our workers are ready to meet. We see these workers building new buildings, installing 500,000 new electric vehicle charging stations across the country as we modernize our highway system to adapt to the changes that have already taken place. We see American consumers switching to electric vehicles through rebates and incentives, and the residents of our cities and towns breathing cleaner air, and fewer kids living with asthma and dying from it. Now, not only that, the federal government owns and maintains an enormous fleet of vehicles, as you all know. With today's executive order, combined with the Buy American executive order I signed on Monday, we're going to harness the purchasing power of the federal government to buy clean, zero-emission vehicles that are made and sourced by union workers right here in America. With everything I just mentioned, this will mean 1 million new jobs in the American automobile industry, 1 million. We'll do another thing. We'll take steps towards my goal of achieving 100% carbon pollution-free electric sector by 2035. Transforming the American electric sector to produce power without carbon pollution will be a tremendous spur to job creation and economic competitiveness in the 21st century. Not to mention the benefits to our health and to our environment. Already, 84% of all new electric capacity planned to come onto the electric grid this year is clean energy. Clean energy. Why? Because it's affordable, because it's clean, because in many cases it's cheaper. And it's where we're keeping up. They're keeping up. We're going to need scientists and national labs, land-grant universities, historical Black colleges and universities to innovate the technologies needed to generate, store, and transmit clean electricity across distances, and battery technology and a whole range of other things. We need engineers to design them and workers to manufacture them. We need iron workers and welders to install them. Technologies they invent, design, and build will ultimately become cheaper than any other kind of energy, helping us dramatically expand our economy and create more jobs with a cleaner environment. We'll become the world's largest exporter of those technologies, creating even more jobs. And we're going to build 1.5 million new energy efficient homes and public housing units that are going to benefit